So when I say every type of vehicle was on the table, I mean literally everything. So let's start hashing this out. First of all, pickup trucks and SUVs. I'm not wild about pickup trucks in general, and I'm not crazy about SUVs, but there was some appeal to getting a nice vehicle that I could drive year round and then kind of get rid of the battle wagon, because quite frankly, as much fun as I have in the battle wagon, it's just very slow and it's not a luxury vehicle in any sense, right? The frameless windows whistle like nobody's business at highway speeds. The acceleration on it is not great, but also the fuel economy is not really that great either compared to some modern compact sports cars. I briefly considered some pickup trucks and SUVs because I was like, okay, if I can get something that does all the utility stuff, but I can drive it year round and it's really nice and it's also fast, that would be cool. The SRT8 Grand Cherokees, those were on my list, but those are like obscenely priced for what they are. I just couldn't justify that price. The Ford Raptor is pretty much the only pickup truck I enjoy. And then I also enjoy the Jeep Wranglers, but I'm not a Wrangler guy. And part of the reason I actually sold my WRX back when I had that is you definitely get stereotyped as an owner of one of these vehicles. And I wanted to avoid that a little bit when I was looking at the Jeep Wranglers. The other issue with the lifted vehicles is I like doing some light off-roading, but I'm not like a hardcore off-roading guy. And all the off-roading parks near me are like 3+ hours away. So it's not something I can do routinely. And unless I'm renting a place for the weekend, I have to find a place that can take the dogs. And then obviously I have to pay for the place, is more out-of-pocket expense. So unless I'm doing that, it's like a 3-hour drive each way minimum to hit some light trails. There's just not a lot of that around me where I'm located. So doing 6 hours of driving to do like a 2 or 3 hour off-road excursion, it just doesn't make sense for me, right? And realistically, I'm not going to do that often enough. So I think the novelty of having that capability is cool, but then it would really just turn into that after a few weeks of being a novelty when I could just get like a sports car and then like rent a Jeep for a few days a year and then not have to deal with the loud off-road tires on the highway for the other 360 days a year. Same with the Raptor. I love the Raptor. I love the look of it. I love how it performs off-road, and it's pretty much a factory Baja blaster, but I don't have a need for it, and that thing is huge. It's a pain to park anywhere, and I think the enjoyment of that is kind of the fact that it's cool and it can go off-road and do those things, but because I can't really use that, I'm more going to enjoy the performance aspect, and it's just not as fun from a driving perspective as some of the other vehicles I was looking at. For the same reason that I could use something year-round, I also considered a lot of hot hatches or like sporty sedans if they were all-wheel drive. Now the ones I considered, Honda Fit, which I think was too slow, and I just don't think I like the front-wheel drive aspect enough, especially as something that's going to be a toy. There are Honda Fit racing series. I rolled out the Mazda 2 for the same reason. The Fiesta ST I think would be a little bit small, but that is a very fun car. The Focus ST, I actually test drove a few, but it was just too slow for me, and then I would have to really modify it to get to the point that I would like it to be speed-wise. And then the GTIs I think are more geared towards luxury. So for me, I wanted something with a little more excitement and a little less of that like daily driver comfort. So I think a GTI for me was a little lower on that list. I also test drove a Focus RS, and I made it as far as driving it around the parking lot before deciding I didn't like it. I just didn't like the way the clutch engaged, and I thought for, you know, a $30,000, $35,000 car at the time, that's a lot of money to pay for something that I could get used to but didn't really like off the bat. I've had that issue in the past where I've had a car and I just always hated the clutch engagement, and I was like, not about it. So I didn't want to get back into that mess. The other issue I had with the RS specifically, but also with some of these other hot hatches, they didn't have nearly the level of practicality that I have with the Forester. So I do have a hitch on the Forester. I can do some light towing with the trailer, but for the most part, hooking up the trailer is a process. So I like to throw things just directly in the back. And in another one of my videos that I'll link below, I literally put a full length sheet of plywood that was about 3 feet wide into the back of the car when I was taking it home for a project. I do a lot of house projects and stuff like that. So if I wanted to replace the Forester, it's got to be with something that can actually do those utility things. The issue with a lot of these hot hatches, especially the Focus RS, is that even though you have the same cargo volume inside or comparable amount, it's either more heavily impacted by the sloping roofline, so it's a less usable space, or the cargo opening itself is just smaller, so you can't physically fit as much through that opening. I think I actually did take a tape measure and check on a few of the vehicles I looked at, and it was like enough that I wouldn't be able to do what I wanted to do with it. On top of that, the Forester, I like to throw things in there and I just don't care about the interior, which I've said because I bought it for like $2,400. You can't do that with a $30,000 car. Then you throw something in and you got to worry about, okay, am I scratching the leather seats? Am I ripping off the window tint? Am I damaging the door cards? You have to worry about that on a $30,000 car because the depreciation aspect is just so much more. It's kind of ironic that I thought about that when I was looking at these utility vehicles, but I didn't think about that before I did the paint correction on the Viper. But to be fair, the Viper is only a summer toy and I'm not using it for the utility things, so it's easier to keep it in that nicer condition, so I have less of an issue with that. Obviously the RS handled well, had good steering feel, and the acceleration from what I experienced was good, but the problem with that and the other hatchbacks and wagons I looked at is that we're sacrificing too much performance for not enough utility. So those got ruled out. My focus then kind of shifted to actual sports cars. So the GTR was one of them.